Okay, what do I do? What do I do? Does that mean I made it? Damn it. Hello everybody and welcome back. My name's Argonaut, and at the time of recording this, it's currently Christmas time. So in this video, we're going to be talking about an old Christmas game, Parasite Eve, Squaresoft's unique attempt at an RPG horror game that came out for the PS1 back in the 90s, including its development history, story, and gameplay, as well as my thoughts on it. But before we get started, if you like this video and want to see more like it, then feel free to click that subscribe button to keep up with me. I'd really appreciate it. And with all that shameless promotion out of the way, on with the video. Okay, first things first, the original Parasite Eve is actually a book that came out back in 1995, and this game serves as a sequel to that book. I tried to buy a copy of the book myself, but, well, it's a bit more expensive than I'd prefer it to be. For Parasite Eve, Squaresoft actually used a modified version of the Final Fantasy VII engine, and, I mean, as you play throughout the game, you can easily see it. Not to mention that Tetsuya Nomura, the same guy that did the character designs for Final Fantasy VII back then, also did the designs for Parasite Eve, as well as having Yoko Shimura, the same woman that did the music for the Kingdom Hearts series, doing the soundtrack for this game. Also, funny enough, the author of the book Parasite Eve had no idea of the game's plot until after it was finished. But, after 2 years of development, Parasite Eve was released in Japan on March 29th of 1998, and in America on September 10th of the same year. And it was also Squaresoft's first ever rated M game. The first time I ever heard of Parasite Eve was back in about 1999, when I was about 8. I'd never seen any commercials about it, or heard the other kids on the playground talking about it, but I did have a PlayStation Underground disc, you remember those? With not a demo of it, but just showing some of the pre-rendered cutscenes with red goop all throughout the city, and the Statue of Liberty also covered in red goop. Now, while I wouldn't play it until way later, the trailer made me curious as to what the hell type of game it actually was, and it stuck with me. The first time I actually played it was on my PSP back in about 2008, and truth be told, I barely remembered too much about it before my latest playthrough of it, just that I liked the battle system, and Aya had powers. But, now let's move on to the story of the game. Now, quick spoiler alert, if you don't wish to hear about the story, you can just jump ahead to the next chapter. Otherwise, here we go. I actually had a bit of trouble following the story of this game, but you start off as Aya, a police officer on a bad date at an opera a few days before Christmas, when suddenly people start spontaneously combusting. It turns out the lead actress for the play, Melissa, is behind it. She's able to control people's mitochondria and send a signal to them, which causes them to create a huge amount of heat and energy, causing the phenomenon to happen. It seems to affect everyone except for Aya, because instead of burning alive, Aya instead gains powers and abilities herself, meaning that Aya's pretty much the only one that can chase Melissa. As Aya pursues Melissa, Melissa transforms into this weird creature and decides to start calling herself Eve, and talks about how mitochondria, despite being the powerhouse of the cell, has been enslaved to the nucleus and it's now time to free it, before then taking off to enact some type of plan. Along the way, as you pursue her, you're also able to see that Melissa, or rather Eve, is able to mutate animals into becoming these deadly, grotesque creatures. As you go through the game, you learn that Eve's body is deteriorating due to an issue between her mitochondria and her host cells. By the way, Eve and Melissa are actually two different people. Eve completely took over Melissa's body, and Eve's goal is to get pregnant and give birth to the ultimate being, a purebred being born from her mitochondria that would either free other people's mitochondria, thus turning them into monsters, or burning people alive. And as you progress further in the game, you learn that Aya had a sister that died when they were both kids, named Maya, who died along with their mother, and that at the time of her death, Maya was actually possessed by Eve. And years later, a doctor named Hans Clamp learned about Eve and for some reason wanted to help her? So he transplanted Maya's kidney into Melissa, which would be how Eve would later on take over Melissa's body. And he also created an artificial sperm so Eve could get pregnant without a male donor, which means the ultimate being that Eve gives birth to wouldn't have to worry about human DNA causing any type of internal conflict. By the way, artificial sperm would be kind of scary if it existed in real life. I mean, what'd be the point of men at that point? But moving on, Aya chases Eve throughout the city as she sets things up, always a step behind. Until finally, when Eve is setting up to give birth, Aya is able to finally confront her at the Statue of Liberty and defeat Eve once and for all. Unfortunately though, Aya didn't realize that Eve had set up an external womb for the ultimate being until it was born. Aya then fights against the ultimate being, with it constantly evolving every time Aya defeats it, until finally Aya is able to heavily weaken it by using bullets made with her blood. And finally defeats it by overheating an engine in a boiler room, causing an explosion that the ultimate being gets caught up in. After you beat the ultimate being, it's revealed that when Aya was young, she had a defect in her right eye, and she actually had Maya's eye transplanted into hers. And Eve triggered a different type of evolution inside Aya, where instead of the mitochondria taking over, Aya's mitochondria work with the other parts of her cells in harmony, which would explain why Aya was immune to being set randomly on fire, and also why she got powers and abilities like Eve had. At the end of the game, Aya and her friends try going back to the same opera house to watch the same play from the beginning of the game. And that kinda makes me wonder, with all that citywide chaos, it didn't take too long for them to reopen, huh? I mean, how much time passed before they reopened up the play? A day? But while watching the play, it seems like everybody in the audience's mitochondria takes over their cells, and they're all under some type of trance except for Aya. And then the game just ends, maybe leaving itself open for a sequel? But anyway, let's now move on to the gameplay. Parasite Eve's gameplay is a bit unique. Similar to Final Fantasy VII, it uses an active time battle system where you have to wait for a gauge to fill up before you can attack or do any type of action. But, unlike Final Fantasy VII, you can move around freely during battle. Aya's basic attack is using whatever gun she has equipped to shoot at whichever enemy she targets. Each gun has a specific range represented by a dome you could see before you choose to attack, and also when attacking, you're not able to move, which can leave you open to being attacked yourself. You're also able to mod your guns to increase their power, or give them an ability that another gun may have, like being able to fire more often per turn. Along with Aya's basic attack ability, you're also able to use Parasite powers, represented by the green bar underneath your health, which automatically recharges during battle every time you use it. Personally, from what I've seen in my playthrough though, most of Aya's Parasite powers tend to be based more towards support or defense as opposed to offense. By that, I mean you can heal, make barriers, speed up your movement or slow down an enemy's movement, stuff like that. To keep up a game balance, every time you use a Parasite ability, your gauge recharges slower and slower, eventually charging so slowly you won't really even be able to use any abilities at all. Which I think is fair. That way you can't just abuse it every fight. You can also use items as well during your turn, medicine or other support items that clear away status effects, but with the active time battle system, it can sometimes lead to awkward moments, where you and your enemy are just running around in circles as you wait for your gauge to recharge so you can attack. You also can't see your enemies in the overworld, it's instead random encounters, which I always found to be pretty weird since Chrono Trigger was able to do it, and that came out before Parasite Eve, and that game was also made by Squaresoft. But I will say a cool thing with this game though is how smoothly it shifts you from exploration over to battle. Aya even holds whichever gun you have equipped on her. Though, for some reason after the battle is over, no matter what weapon you have equipped, it always transforms back into a pistol. And that brings me to my next point here. The inventory management. For a good chunk of the game, I had to keep constantly juggling my inventory space as I went through the game. The game hands you so many items, and you also get even more items through battle. And the worst part is that the special items that you need to unlock doors and whatnot get added to your main inventory. Typically, nowadays, if a game gives you a key item, it gets its own separate inventory. But not in this one. Although, later on I realized that if I were to use my bonus points, these points that you obtain whenever you level up, towards it, I actually could have increased my item space. But I mean, the hell would I want to do that for? I'd rather use it to increase how fast my battle gauge charges up, or to increase the power of one of my weapons, or the defense of some of my armor. The game's broken up into separate chapters, which has you going to a different location in pursuit of Eve. And half of the times, you basically get stuck in a really big area where you have to figure out how to reach the right room to move the story on forward. Like, seriously, it took me about 9 hours to beat this game, but a good chunk of that was from being lost and not knowing how to find certain rooms. If someone played this and they knew exactly where to go and what they were doing, they would probably be able to clear this game in about 4, maybe 5 hours, making this game extremely short. I also had a little bit of trouble knowing what I could and couldn't interact with sometimes, since what you can interact with doesn't necessarily always stand out, leading to me hugging a lot of walls and just spamming the X button, hoping to find a door or something. Difficulty-wise, this game honestly wasn't that hard, but it felt like the difficulty randomly spiked up towards the end. The final standoff with Eve actually kicked my butt quite a bit. I think it took me about 5 tries to beat her, and since this is an old game, if you die, it's back to the title screen for you. But I honestly don't mind that too much. What really sucked though, was that whenever you die to Eve, you also get hit with an unskippable pre-rendered cutscene along with a whole bunch of dialogue that you have to go through again. I only ended up beating her because I unlocked a Parasite ability called Liberate, which I didn't even know I had since I barely used any other Parasite power besides the one for healing and casting haste. But Liberate lets Aya transform into a mitochondria creature herself and deal crap loads of damage to an opponent at the cost of her full Parasite power gauge. And it also leaves her immobile and open to attacks for a few seconds. But I digress. At the end of the game, you end up having to fight Eve in a 2-phase fight, then you get a quick save point and have to immediately fight the ultimate being in a not 1, not 2, not even 3, but 4-phase fight. And then you have to run away from it in a chase sequence, which is such a scary moment, because if it catches you, like how it caught me because I stupidly tried to save, then you have to do the whole 4-phase fight over again. But after you beat the game, you unlock something called EX mode. Now, initially, this basically seems like a regular New Game Plus, except the game lets you carry over a gun and a piece of armor from your first playthrough, while resetting you back to level 1, but at some point you unlock the Chrysler Building, which is 77 randomly generated floors that give you the ability to save after every 10 floors, all leading up to one final confrontation with Eve in Maya's body. And once you beat her, you unlock a secret ending which shows that Maya is still alive inside Aya, as well as Aya's body going back to how it was at the beginning of the game before she got powers to begin with. For me personally, I didn't bother with the Chrysler Building on my playthrough. I didn't even know it was a thing, because EX mode just seemed like New Game Plus to me, and it really just seemed like an extra time fluff to me as well. Like, why even bother have you replay the game like normal for a point before you unlock it? They could have just made it so you immediately unlock it after the cliffhanger first ending. But, whatever. On to the music and graphics of the game. Like I said at the beginning of the video, Parasite Eve was made using a modified version of the engine that was used to make Final Fantasy VII, so it pretty much looks like how their battle designs do. For its time as a PS1 game, it does look pretty decent. You also get a whole bunch of pre-rendered cutscenes throughout the game, which I think look pretty great as well. It just stinks that they're not skippable if you should happen to die before reaching a save point. And now, with the music of the game, I think a lot of the tracks were unfortunately pretty forgettable. But I hope you like this theme. Because you'll be hearing it a lot as you play. But while I think a lot of the tracks were forgettable, I think the ones that stand out really stand out. Like this track you hear when you fight Eve. And I also think the track that plays when the ultimate being chases you at the end will definitely be sticking with me for a long time. Okay, but now let's talk about how this game did after it came out. After Parasite Eve came out, a lot of people thought pretty favorably of it, and in the first half of 1999, it sold almost 1 million units in Japan, making it Japan's third best-selling game for that period. It would also go on to get 2 sequels, Parasite Eve 2 for the PS1, and The Third Birthday for the PSP. Now, at this point, a lot of fans want a remake, and truthfully, with its blend of horror and RPG elements along with the story, I personally think a remake would actually do pretty well in today's day and age. But, from what I've researched, it seems that not only would the game be too niche to justify the cost of making it, but there also seems to be some type of licensing issues going on with the book's author and Square Enix, meaning it might be unlikely we'll ever see a remake of it. But, on a lighter note, though recently announced, there's going to be a spiritual successor released in the future called Parasite Mutant, with a demo coming out for it on January 6th of 2026 on Steam. And, hey, if we're really, really lucky, maybe Square Enix will do something petty like make a Parasite Eve remake because of Parasite Mutant being successful. Kind of like how EA did with the Dead Space remake when they heard Callisto Protocol was coming out. Please remake Dead Space 2, EA. Please remake Dead Space 2. I thought Parasite Eve offered a really unique experience as it blended a sci-fi horror and turn-based RPG together. I also really liked the story as well, although parts of it were a bit of a stretch at points, like Maya being possessed by Eve before dying in a car crash, and her organs getting put in Aya and Melissa. I also never realized just how short the story actually was, and I hope that if they ever do make a remake of this game, that they just make the Chrysler Building unlockable after beating the game, instead of having to start a new game EX file first. I also enjoyed how much customizability you had with your weapons throughout the game as well. I'm definitely one of those people that would love to see a remake of this game, and I personally think it would do better than the people at Square Enix think. Hopefully, if enough people support Parasite Mutant, maybe Square Enix might seriously consider a remake. But those are my thoughts on Parasite Eve, Square Enix's all but forgotten M-rated sci-fi horror franchise. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Have you even heard of this game before this video? Let me know in the comment section down below. I would love to hear from you. And, with all that being said, I'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for watching.